Hello, froslads and frostlasses. It is I, Untier Talk, from hit series Untier Talk, and we're going to talk about Untiers.
That one was better, Zod.
Thank you. I'm a professional intro maker. That's my job description. So I am Megazard, and we're joined by Taskr and Hajad. Say hi, Taskr and Hajad.
Hello.
Hello, froslads.
I don't know why I list you both in the same sentence. Like, one of you is the co-host, and the other one of you is just a filthy guest. So.
Wow.
But this is basically just going to be meta discussion because we haven't done that in a hot second, even though it's Untier Talk. For those of you who don't know, because I don't know. I started a VR vote today for the next viability rankings update. Today being Monday, Untier Talk was probably going to be out before the update is out, but we're kind of working with that mindset, having just thought a lot about the meta and gone for Ladder Tour. And I know Jed and I did. Tasker, did you actually go for Ladder Tour at all?
Yeah, I did it round one.
Oh, you did round one. Okay, so we hit the 1, 2, 3 rounds, and that's neat. So I know I have plenty to talk about, but I think Tasker, as the guest, you can start us off. Are there any meta thoughts that immediately jump to your head of like new Pokemon that are worth considering, or S rank, or the way the meta's changed, or wherever you want to go, and we'll just follow from there.
I mean, I think the elephant in the room is the Froslads S rank nom, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And
It's a massive elephant in the room.
yeah. So I think probably best starting with that. If you want my thoughts on it, I'm gonna say it should stay in A+. Here's the reason. I just think that it's don't get me wrong, it's like a really good mon. It can control hazards in the game and all that, and it can basically guarantee at least a spike in every game. But I just don't think it's got that I don't know, that whatever Pokemon like Mesprit have got, just to push it over the edge. I feel like it's not strong enough to perform any other role. It's quite weak even with Z moves, and it's not the bulkiest of mons. But yeah, so that's basically my initial thoughts. Don't know what you think.
So as a complete tangent to that, I immediately thought if there was any elephant Pokemon, and I realized that there's probably not any elephant Pokemon.
There's Donphan.
Holy shit! Does that count as an elephant though?
Yes.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay, mate, I stand correct.
So the Donphan in the room. Go on.
The Donphan in the room. I think I have the contrary opinion to Taskr. So I think Froslash should go to S just because of its. I think it's, as a spiker, it performs so many roles that other spikers can't, and it makes it so splashable. There's no other spiker in the meta that's a spin blocker as well. And given how popular spinning is in PU, it's that's a really good thing for it. It basically frees up your team to run something else instead of that spin blocking option. So you could run something that's more to your taste, or more to Spike's taste in general. So I find that it's much more splashable than other spikers like Quillfish, because Quillfish isn't bad, but and it feels like its role as a spiker, potentially T-spiker, physical, defensive, physically defensive powerhouse, so to speak. But the one thing that you can't say for Quillfish that you can say for Froslass is that Froslass, you can just put it on every single team. You don't need to hesitate about putting Froslass because everything does better with spikes. And I feel like the big part is that spikes enables not one Pokemon, but enables the entire team to do their job better. And I just think that even with like not that great bulk per se. The combination of wisp and fast speed essentially means that you have double the fizz death that a Pokemon normally would, put so to speak. So yeah, I mean that's my thing on Froslass. I think it's one of those Pokemon. It's the best spike setter in the tier. It like compresses rolls, so you can run what you want, and it's much bulkier than one would think. Yeah.
It's my turn to do a monologue with no input from everyone else. Because everyone knows that's the best way to podcast. Just have one person talk on their own for 2 minutes and have the next person talk on their own for 2 minutes. Nah, we'll mix it up after this. But real quick, I guess since I'm the deciding vote on like what the three of us think, I said let's bump Froslass to S, which really surprised me because last week I was ready to bump Aggron to S, and now I don't think that's not even on the table really. I mean, it is on the table, but we're not even really talking about that, and I wouldn't bump it to S. Froslass is really good. It's really not weak. I know people call it weak. It's really not. It does exactly as much damage as it needs to with every single set. It can run massive amounts of variation, and I know people really tend to expect the same general set of move, but there really is just so much you can get off. Your random Z Thunders and your Destiny Bonds and your Z Fake Tears and crazy stuff.
Wait. You just said Z Fake Tears. What the hell does that do?
Okay, Z Fake Tears boost your special attack by 1 in addition to giving the enemy a Fake Tear. So if you ever want to break through something, that essentially puts you at +3 to the opponent. And sure, they can switch out, but that's probably their SPDEF check to Froslass. So what are they switching into that wants to take your +1 attacks? It is pretty niche, especially since people aren't using Clef as much, but like that thing just abuses... Yeah. It abuses Clef especially pretty hard, but it can also make life difficult for some other random SPDEF things, like Articuno. It's weird, but trust me, I think it's genuinely like a workable set. Anyway, point is, it can do all these crazy things, and it is never worthless because spikes are just that good. And I think one of you brought up Quillfish as kind of like the comparison for another spiker, and Quillfish does spike, and it has a ridiculous amount of variety, just like Froslass, and that is kind of similar. But it doesn't necessarily like feel like the same threat, unless your team is specifically weak to Quillfish and specifically has a really hard time switching into Water and Poison Stab, which hell, I have built teams that do. I've built a team, been like, shit, I literally can't switch into like fast Quillfish, not even max attack, just fast Quillfish, I can't switch into it. But part of that is because your resists get spiked on. But anyway, like Froslass really does put out more offensive pressure than ever before with things like Clefairy and whatever getting less popular. So many things that benefit from spikes happen to just like beat all of its checks in addition to that. I think it's just an incredibly strong pick that should be considered for literally every single team. And to me, that's really what gets it over the edge. It's maybe... I think the top of like S rank is incredibly good. Froslass, Aggron, Aurorus, Quillfish, Kangaskhan, Lilligant, Lycanroc, crazy super threats. But the difference to me is that with the exception of Quillfish, which I do think is less good as Froslass for the reason I've stated, with the exception of Quillfish, I would not absolutely be building a team and be like, I should heavily consider putting this Pokemon on it, because the other ones feel like only specific roles or something that maybe not, I don't need a Kangaskhan on every single team. I should absolutely consider Froslass no matter what I'm building.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I feel like that's the thing that tipped my mind from Froslass is A+ good, it's really good Pokemon, to Froslass it's S rank good. It's a like top tier, like cream of the crop type of thing. The fact that you can build any team, no matter what it is, like hyper offense, bulky balance, semi-stall, and every single time the question comes, do you want to use Froslass, yes or no?
I don't know. Just to add a little bit of an argument to that, I don't think you guys are fitting on all these teams. Like I recently posted like a big squad dump, and like I had to build a lot of teams for that. And froslads is in some of them, but every time that I'd build a team, I'd think, oh shit, I'm weak to Lilligant, I need Sensu, or I'd think like, oh, Quillfish fits better. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like I could fit it on as many teams as.
So here's my thing, right? The reason why the reason why I don't buy that too much is because sure you don't allow the process doesn't check much in like the grand scheme of things. Sure, but what I'm trying to say, what I think with Froslass is that you get spike support and you get a spin blocker in one Pokemon. So instead of having a spin blocker, let's say Sensu is your spin blocker, you can run, and let's say Sensu is also your Lilligant check. You could also viably run Fat Froslass instead of Sensu, and then run like a AV Bufalon just to give the most heinous option. You know what I mean? It just allows you.
Obviously, that's what you go to, AV Bufalon. Thank you again.
Yeah, AV Bufalon. Yeah. Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. It allows you to focus more heavily, focus your resources more heavily on doing what you want with that free slot. So if your team ended up being weak to Lilligant, Froslash would often help the team be less weak to Lilligant by providing you with a more solid deck, if that makes sense.
Also, the thing with comparing Froslash to Quillfish and how they're both kind of splashable, yes, but to me, Quillfish is always the go-to if Froslash specifically can't work for the slot. If I need a spiker and I can make either of them work, I'm going to default to Froslass. It is better and does the more rolls. And then Quillfish is what I'll go to if I'm like, okay, but I specifically really have to, resist fighting. Or no, okay, Froslass resists fighting. I'm not very smart. Quillfish, if I specifically want to, yeah, sure, check Combuskin. No, why can't I think of something Quillfish checks and Froslass doesn't? I swear. Fine, if I specifically want to do well versus Alolan, if I do want to do well versus Alolan Sandslash, there you go. Or if I want to be able to pivot into Stoutland and click Destiny Bond, that's a good one. That is where I've actually, like recently, I used Quillfish a decent amount for on a team for PU Ladder Tour, and it was only there because I want to be able to pivot into Stoutland and click Destiny Bond. That was literally the only reason.
Fair enough.
The toxic bugs as well.
Which Chielenberry Froslass can do, I bet. Let me just calc that. Froslass, item, Chielenberry.
Chielenberry Torterra to switch to Stoutland, and I was shook. I was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah, no, Chielen Froslass can switch into Stout. Damn, I have to consider that, especially since you can Wisp Stoutland and then the Facade won't kill you? Question mark. Let me calc that too. Okay, Facade will kill you. Facade will kill you after rocks, but Return won't.
I think the reason I tend to go with Quillfish more is just T-Spike's absorption as well.
Yeah, T-Spike's absorption is a big thing.
Yeah, I'm not even afraid of T-Spikes though.
Running last, you need like a Skunk Rally, and then I end up building the same teams with Lass. This is like Lass, Reggie, Skunk, and then the rest of them.
I will say T-Spike absorption is a good point. Although I will say the amount of T-Spike setters is quite limited.
Yeah, I'm not afraid of T-Spikes. There's not that many setters. They're not that common. There's lots of removal, and you got Skunk and Silphily Poison, whatever. I'm not afraid of it. So on building the same teams with Froslass, I don't see how you do that when it's so varied. Froslass is something you can slap on any team. Like Froslass goes on Rain, and Froslass goes on Semi-Stall, and Froslass goes on Hyper Offense, and Froslass, yes, goes on those balanced Regirock, Froslass, whatever teams. So I really do not see it as something that keeps the team looking the same.
The one thing that I would also say, just like as a final point, is that if you look at S rank as a whole, like you have Mesprit, which is like Stealth Rock, which enables the whole team, and you also have Healing Wish. And now every single Pokemon in the entire game would love a Healing Wish, like Pokemon in the back. You know what I mean? If you look at Skuntank has Aftermath, it has Pursuit, has Sucker Punch. It always like gets some sort of momentum going. It always gets a kill. It's got a great speed tier. So many resists. Such a great glue Skuntank is. So it enables an entire team, right? It enables the whole team. I treat froslads in a very similar way, right? Because you get spikes, which enables the whole team, and you get that roll compression with the ghost pad, which allows you to spin block. So I'd say that's the main thing that sort of convinced that another thing really that convinced me that froslads was S rank worthy.
I agree, but I think that's good enough to move on from the S rank topic.
You guys said Agron. Agron wasn't. You were talking about Agron. I was
just briefly, because that was, no one was really talking about froslads to S like 2 weeks ago. Or whenever we had the last vote, a little over 2 weeks ago, I think. But now Agron to S has kind of dipped, and it's been froslads. I don't see Agron as an S rank mon. I see it pretty much the same as Auroras in, strong, really hard to switch into, solid defensive utility, can run multiple roles, like really good mon, but still just that really good mon without being like more of an overall domineering force, mostly just because offense can kind of just be fine no matter what. I don't know. It's very hard to quantify. Like, if someone asked me strictly explain why Agron and Auroras are not S rank or considered broken, I'd have a super hard time explaining it. I don't know what I would do. But I don't feel like they are.
The main thing I feel like is because they're slow wall breakers. You know what I mean? Like, they're like a slot where you just dedicate Agron or Auroras, whichever way you want to put them, as this is your wall breaker. You will use this to break the other guy's team. It's your immediate pressure, right? So, if you think about it, Agron doesn't do anything that Auroras can't, and neither can Auroras, right? It's like in the vacuum, if you want to talk about it, of in the box of wall breaking, right? That's at the end of the day what they're both are things. Both of them have stops. You can talk about Crab or a Lowland Sand Slash for Auroras, and Agron has Poliwrath. You can talk about that. Okay, they have stops. What I think the thing about those two Pokemon, in their own separate ways, that makes them not S rank or not broken, is that they're kind of just slow. You can feasibly pressure them if you have an offense team. An Agron versus offense is not going to get more than one kill. Whereas, something faster, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of generalizations and whatever. But yeah, it just doesn't. It is kind of just another good, but it's hard, man. Dude, explaining yourself is hard.
Yeah. Why did we do a podcast again?
I don't know. Okay, let's move on to something else. Do you want to throw out a topic, or shall I?
I think PLT is a good topic.
No, we just did PLT last week. I mean, I want to talk about if you laddered and that gave you thoughts about the meta. That's mine. My big thing is thoughts I got from laddering. Specifically, one big one. All right, let's just roll with that. So, the big thing I found with Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say about PULT, because I got PULT Rex. PULT Rex? What do you call it? PLT qualification?
Yeah, sure, whatever.
So in week 3, and I was using for half the time I was using a Kanga Spike team, which I built, and the other half the time I was using a Stall team, which Teddy built. And when I was using the Kanga Spike team, something that I really noticed is that
oh god, Hajad keeps just randomly drop.
You would see a link again.
Yeah, you just dropped. You randomly drop once a podcast. It's so weird. It's not a consistent issue. It's just once a podcast you just randomly drop and we didn't hear anything.
Okay, so people don't run Caboose Ups resists. I don't understand. People will have a switch into, I think it's the dual stab. I think people have a switch into rock types and a switch into water types. like just as a general thing, like they'd have a mudsdale and they'd have a quillfish, but they will never have a a polyrack. It's weird to explain.
Oh, I know why.
Go on.
It's pretty simple. So people are prepped for Omastar specifically. We're being able to revenge kill Omastar by having a fast Scarfer. And if you throw them with Kabutops, if you throw them with like Rain Quillfish, or if you throw them with Rain Dance Ludicolo, if you throw them with even Smash Caracosta, which I nommed to drop because Omastar is just so much better that it needs to go down another sub-rank. But like all these things get around the fact that people are really prepping for it. Just also Floatzel remains really good because less so, but still like it's all because the prep for water has become Fast Scarfer because water types are Omastar, or ways to beat Quillfish specifically by handling a Spiker, not by handling like a water type. So yeah, I agree. Like Kabutops resists. Unless people happen to have them like Girder, they often don't really pop up, which is odd. And Girder is not ladder common at all.
Yeah, it's super weird. I also say with Kabutops, having that Scarfer plus Spinner roll compression, more roll compression, is actually like really useful, especially on like a fatter style of team. I feel like with especially with Froslads being like one of the main spin blockers now, you can't just switch in Froslads into Kabutops unless you're like, okay, I need to prevent spin at all costs in this very moment, which is a very rare scenario to come up if you're using Froslads. So it's like, I think that ability as well to beat Froslads on the spin and then spin at a later point is one of the things that makes Kabutops a really a much better Pokemon than it used to be.
Yeah, I mean,
you know what? It can't really spin up Quillfish.
Are you talking about the Rocky Helmet stuff?
Yeah.
Dude, the way Helmet, if you die to Helmet, stops you from spinning, that is such a whack mechanic, and I don't know that I like or dislike it. It's just like weird, man. Just
okay, so
whoa.
here's a scenario, Megazord. If your Kabutops is at 30%, how much does Iron Barbs do? 12%?
Something like that. Yeah, I think it dies to Barbs plus Helmet, but
So if your Kabutops is at 25% and you spin on a Iron Barbs, Rocky Helmet, Togedemaru, and you take 28% and you die, does that mean the spin doesn't get off?
It does mean that, yes.
Yeah.
That's broken.
Support Toge is also like legitimately a fine mon. It's super niche compared to Scarf, but people have posted about it in Creative Underrated. Like there is nothing wrong with it. You just never expect it.
Helmet Toge.
Support Toge in general, but yeah, Helmet is a good item for it.
Yeah, I used that in like I had one team in like Alpha. I remember in Beta, I had that set, and it was like. It was really like people didn't expect all the chip damage it took. It was like really satisfying.
Yeah, especially when everything runs pivot moves like Mesprit, Primate. Stuntank doesn't OHKO you, so it's like that takes minimum 56. So it's like it's just one of those Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean this is a meta where chip damage is so huge with all the hazards and helmets and all that, and it happens to be particularly good at racking it up.
Sure.
All right, let's toss out my topic. So one thing I noticed with laddering is that did you know that this tier has psychic types other than Mesprit, and they're actually really cool.
Whoa.
And I'm not even talking about Jinx, because like everyone knows what Jinx does. Jinx is like the A rank, Mesprit is the S rank. Everyone knows about them. But what I did, one team I used had an Alolan Raichu, and another team I used had a Kadabra, and I also ran into and played some decent people using a lot of Claydol, and those three Pokemon are all pretty interesting. Plus, we also have like a Metang and Natu and Behem and Mr. Mime, but I only have like three to talk about. Oh, and this Bronzor, I guess. Point is, Alolan Raichu, pretty cool. I used it to kind of try to take over the Pyroar slot as that like fast breaker. It really doesn't. It functions entirely differently. It is not nearly as good. Yogi nommed it up to like A- or whatever. No, that's disgusting. It is not that good. But Alolan Raichu is like a decent, solid slot that can be really annoying for very specific teams to deal with. Sub nasty plot, especially if your speed controls like your Scarf Mesprit or whatever, and all you can do is U-turn on it and they just sub up again. Yeah, if you can get that sub nasty plot, or like if the speed controls the Kabutops, it's very hard to fodder versus it. Which I really enjoy. Also, 3 attacks can be a nice lure. Like there is a lot to mess with, and I think that a lot of PU Pokemon are kind of like that, where there is a lot to mess with, but we kind of have recycled the same sets and everything. Like if this was like NU and getting played in SPL and Snake and all that, I think we definitely would have seen Pokemon like Alolan Raichu get a lot more love as people just realize the very specific high-level things that they can do. That's the kind of Pokemon it feels like.
Even like Jinx in a way. Jinx is a similar sort of story.
Jinx can do a shit ton of stuff. Sash Counter, by the way, definitely think about that.
Really good.
That's such an annoying set.
Iceum's decent as well.
Mm-hmm. Jinx is the least used A rank probably for the entirety of Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon, PU. And it's crazy considering how we were like, no way, Jinx is going to be so broken if it drops. But hey, it's weird. We have things like Froslads and Jinx that you never would have thought to see in PU. Spiritomb even.
Yeah, I feel like you remember that period just before like exhibition where it was like people thought Jinx was broken.
Yeah.
Before all the drops happened. I feel like since that moment where Tomb dropped and everybody just stopped using Jinx, that it's sort of gone under the radar a little bit now.
It has always been under the radar. That is just a fact.
I feel like that period, just before Spiritomb dropped, right, where people were actually using Jinx and like sub like mono Ice Beam Jinx, I feel like that was when it was. I feel like at that point in time, specifically for those 2 days or whatever, that it was actually like broken. Like it was stupid good.
Because like people preferred at that point in time Spiritomb just dropped and people used that as like the main form of like spin blocking.
Yeah. But now it's just sort of like meh. It's a Jinx. I can probably use my chance to check it. Well.
Yeah, I mean, but Jinx is still really good. The key is just actually using a different set. Because I really do think you toss like let's say it's Sash 3 attacks Lovely Kiss or Sash Counter or anything with like Psyshock and Bug Spot. You can throw anything at him. And used properly, it is really going to live up to that A rank potential and more. But people don't touch it because it's PU and we just don't have that kind of meta development that other tiers get. And I'm kind of sad because I do think PU could be a better meta right now than like anything in Snake.
Mm-hmm.
PU is brimming with potential. And that's not meant to be an attack on other tiers. I just think like the way the meta has shaped up is really left like a lot of room for creativity. And speaking of random creativity, Kadabra was the other random psychic type that I used a lot of, and Kadabra is just fun. It is like Mimikyu in any meta where Mimikyu is viable. If anyone's played with a Mimikyu, just think of it like that, where you can just have this thing in the back that can be pretty strong, and you don't necessarily have to worry about setup. And it really is a boon for offense, because offense has to deal with a bunch of just random crap that can just bop it. Lilligant and Lycanroc and Rain Dance, whatever, and Smash Omastar, and the list goes on. And having a Kadabra just do whatever, or let's say you don't need it for that, it can pretty much always just pivot into something random and check it once. Sash Counter in general, like it is just a legitimately useful mon. It's not great, it's not exceptional, it's hard to fit on teams. It's kind of like you don't want to switch it into anything, so for a lot of the time it's not dead weight defensively, but it's dead weight in terms of like switching it directly into things. But it works and it's fun, and you should try it.
I think I know a long time ago now. Kadabra. I think it must be like 9 or 10 months ago now.
I remember that actually.
Yeah, it was. I think right now it's probably at its strongest point when Spiritomb dropped. Actually, because even with Dazzling Gleam versus Spiritomb, you still never wanted to click it. Like it was one of those things where you almost didn't want to click counter just because Spiritomb existed, and now Spiritomb is sort of faded. Like people don't want to use Spiritomb just because we have froslads, and then like, why would you use Spiritomb when you have a froslads? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or, like why would you use Spiritomb when you can use Fat Zensu as your spin blocker? So it's sort of faded into the ether a little bit, and now if you're using Spiritomb, you're using Crotomb because Clefairy is nowhere. So it feels more like Kadabra has a lot more room. Yeah. Just like a bit more breathing space for it to actually like do damage to things, like do damage to like battle walls, or like more generally speaking, like you can use it to check Skuntank, because Skuntank is still popular. Mesprit is still popular.
Yeah, there's two other things that really have changed it, in my opinion. The first one is that it is really easy to run Mesprit alongside Kadabra now, and also Mesprit plus Alolan Raichu works fine. Obviously, there is defensive overlap there, but it not really. Like you're absolutely fine. Kadabra doesn't really function like a psychic type for the most part. They both have an immunity to spikes, so that's awesome. And Mesprit can just do its own thing, and that it doesn't matter that they're two psychic types. That doesn't really factor in at all. And the other thing is, base 105 speed has never been that great until now, because now Pyroar is gone. Now there's just not a lot of fast things. Kadabra is literally. I didn't mean to say literally. I meant to say legitimately one of the fastest mons in the tier right now. If you don't count Scarfers, you beat out, like, you tie with Scyther and you lose to Lycanroc and
Persian.
Lycanroc, Alolan Persian, and Floatzel.
Yeah.
And that's about jump off. For the most part, and you lose to Alolan Raichu. For the most part, Kadabra is one of the fastest mons, and so many of the faster mons. How common it really is Liepard, So it's weird that it can also function as a kind of speed control revenge killer. It's legitimately useful offensively, because it can be kind of annoying to switch into. Some of the things that would normally switch into it don't want to have to deal with counter and encore and whatever shenanigans, and it has a decent amount of coverage moves possible, and then obviously a lot of the specially defensive stuff is still pretty abusable just by the fact that Stoutland, Kangaskhan, Lycanroc, all these physical things, Aggron, abuse a lot of the specially defensive mons that could normally switch into Kadabra. It just has a lot of crazy utility in weird ways. It's just nice. I built around it because I was like, I want to build around something that seems shitty just because I haven't built like a non-standard team in a while. Kadabra is never disappointed.
Yeah, it's a cool one. Like Sash Zam has been around for since Black, White and stuff like that. And I tried it on a Sash Spam team, just a fun team just for ladder, and it's surprisingly awkward to for your opponent to play around sometimes, and it can.
Because you want to switch in Mesprit, and then when you realize you get hit by Shadow Ball, and then you're gonna have to U-turn on it, and then you U-turn on it, and then it hits counter, and then it kills something. It's just sort of annoying to play against. It's hard to even if you have a proper psychic check, you have a Skuntank or you have an Assault Vest Skuntank, you have the perfect.
You have a Skuntank or an Assault Vest Skuntank. Those are the only two psychic checks.
Well, no, but
this is the meta according to Hijad.
The ultimate psychic check, I think, is AB Skuntank. AB Skuntank. It's got the most bulk. It will trap every single psychic type. But if you have a Kadabra, you cannot beat. Yeah, the only psychic type that it loses to is Kadabra. So
what if you run Fire Blast on it?
Oh.
Or AB Skunk. Honestly, why doesn't AV Skunk run HB Ground? I know you have to drop, Triple Dark and Poison Jab, but with Aggron being so big, or HB Fighting, because that also hits Aurorus. I don't know, ignore me. Whatever.
Yeah, you run the physical for pursuit mainly. So you just like you switch into
No, like but like just have one of them, like 4 special attack minus speed, or just minus special attack. That's still probably 2 KOs Aggron.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
Let me check this out.
I used Rock Smash on Band once. Why did I use Rock Smash on Band? For Auroras as well.
For Poniard, obviously.
Oh, Poniard as well. Yeah.
Okay, so a Jolly Skuntank HP Ground minus special attack still does 64 to 75 to Aggron. Like, that seems pretty worthwhile running. Anyway, that's not important. I think we pretty much covered Kadabra, though, so it's I'm fine derailing that.
Wait. I was messing around with Kadabra set a long time ago. Like, this was a very long time. I can't even remember, like, how long ago it was, but it was just about when it was, like, exactly the moment Spiritium dropped, so everybody was, making a hoo-ha over Spiritium, right? And I was messing around with Kadabra, and I was running an Eviolite set with max HP, max defense, and counter. Would that work?
Okay, so moving on from Kadabra. No, but if you want to mess with things like Spiritium, I was running Encore. It's a fine like you can get by with just Psychic Shadow Ball. And Encore doesn't just mess with that; it messes with like all the specially defensive stuff that wants to switch in. You psychic again on the recover, then you Encore. There's nothing. Encore is pretty solid and is actually not.
It wasn't just for the Spiritium though. I felt like it played better versus Mesprit and Skuntank and what's the other thing?
I feel like it's dumb and no one should use it ever.
Okay, maybe I should.
All right, this has already been going. Wow, this has already been 37 minutes. I didn't even realize. Holy cow! Is there anything else that you guys would like to get to? Because, yeah.
There was something, and then I lost my train of thought because.
Good. I'm sure it was no better than fucking Eviolite max defensive Kadabra. Oh Lord, why me?
Eevee.
No,
actually, can we talk about how Tapu Koko's in our tier?
Oh yeah, Tapu Koko's been in our tier for a long time, bro. I don't think, along with Deoxys Speed, I don't think people realize that Deoxys has been in our tier for like 3 meters.
Is there anything you want to talk about that like most listeners will understand?
Like place swoop up.
Okay. Fine then. It's been 37 minutes. I mean, that's long enough. We talked about the meta. This is good enough to just like pour out in some forum posts on the VR and the NP thread and all that.
Congrats to H-Shot getting thingy CC.
Oh yeah, I gave him community contributor for doing this podcast, and I'm gonna take it away now. After that Kadabra comment, I think it's time to go, Jed. I just don't think you're living up to the standards of the badge anymore.
Am I just gonna retire now? Is this the move?
You're done.
just no.
Career over. Mic drop.
Well, thank you guys for watching. Watching, Jesus Christ. All right. I hope you enjoyed this lovely comedy of errors, I guess is the appropriate term. Taskr.
Kadabra is not an error.
Taskr, thank you for showing up once again.
No problem.
And I hope you all have a lovely time playing in the new mini tour that isn't out yet, but will be out by the time this goes up. So I'm practically psychic. I am practically Kadabra.
Megazord, are you going to play with me in the mini tour? Or am I playing with somebody else?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm ending the podcast now. Bye-bye.